Do you want to hear about my nearly a decade old, will require some amount of interpretation League of Legends champion ideas?
Sure.
Yeah. So this first one, I'm just gonna read the words as I had them written, and I'll provide some amount of interpretation
You're
if
also going to
it
interpret
really
your own
requires it.
words.
Yeah, from it was definitely a different person a decade ago. So his passive default between 100% and 66% health, he is tank mode. Between 66 and 33% health, he's support mode. And between 33% and I guess technically 1%, but I have written here 0% is damage mode. And the modes remain active for a few seconds after passing a threshold. And then additionally, he has 3 unique items from the shop. Each cost 300 gold, applies a mutually exclusive buff that can change the order of passives, and gives stats.
Like which order it
So,
procs in.
yeah, so the tank potion is the default. It keeps the order of tank, support, damage. It gives a % health increase. The support potion changes it to support comes first, then tank comes second, damage is still last, but it gives you increased mana regen and flat ability power. And then the final potion that you can get is the damage potion, and that makes it so you go damage, support, and then tank. And that increases your ability power and attack damage by a %. I don't know. It probably would just give you
Adaptive force
flex
now.
adaptive force now. Yeah, I don't think adaptive force was a thing when I
No,
came up with
definitely
this.
not.
Each potion will cancel the effect of the others, but you can switch them at any point. It doesn't refund gold, or at any point when you're shopping. His Q is a targeted ability. There's going to be a lot of targeted abilities in here because back in the day there were a lot more targeted abilities.
Okay.
His Q is a targeted ability, and it deals some damage. As a tank, it roots, and the damage is based off of your resistances. As a support, it can be cast on an ally to shield them, and it's based off your ability power. And then as the damage dealer, it does more damage, scaling with damage stats. A pretty basic ass ability. The W, it casts an AoE circle around yourself, and it moves with you, kind of like a Shyvana W. As tank, it blinds the enemies, which blind had to have worked differently than before because that sounds really OP, and does small amounts of damage. As a support, it heals allies and does some amount of damage to enemies. And as a damage dealer, it shreds resistances and does much more damage.
Yeah, what the fuck, the blind part?
Yeah, I think blind worked differently in the past. I think they changed that when they reworked Graves, but yeah, that's definitely very powerful. So E, 4 lines form a box around where you cast the location. After a brief delay, the lines collapse towards the center. One wall, picked at random, moves quickly, 2 walls move at a medium speed, and 1 wall moves slowly. As a tank, it knocks up enemies. As a support, it speeds up allies. And as a damage, it does more damage, and it also jumps you to the location that you cast it at. His ultimate is kind of like a Mundo ult, but in reverse, where it jumps you up a bunch of health at once and then drains your health a little bit.
Okay.
And it gains additional buffs based off of the mode that you're in. As a tank, it gives tenacity, armor, and magic resist. As a support, it gives movement speed, ability power, and healing power. And as damage, it gives a lot of adaptive force. And I guess the thing to bear in mind is that as you pass over your threshold, you keep the mode active for a little bit. So the idea would be you want to try and be in multiple modes at once as often as you can.
I mean, honestly, compared to some 2025 design, he doesn't seem that overpowered. He honestly seems like he would be unplayed because stance management is something I don't think people would enjoy.
Yeah.
It would be cool. I don't know if it'd actually be popular. Just think about it. If I just dragged and dropped Gunslinger into...
Yeah. No, it'd be bad. I'm not saying that these are good ideas. I'm saying that they're ideas that I had.
I mean, honestly, what did you say? You made that like 2015, 2016 era?
Yeah.
That's probably in line with something they would have designed to come out in like 2018 that then would have been reworked to complete a completely different champion by 2020.
Some of these they stole the ideas from my brain.
Okay, what's next?
Next, we got, this one requires a lot of interpretation because I did not understand what the fuck I wrote. So his passive is after remaining out of combat, you grow a circle around yourself that grants CC immunity. I assume this means to allies as well as yourself. And it breaks after receiving 3, I use the word quick actions and then defined what quick actions are. which are receiving auto attacks, casting abilities, getting hit by abilities. And so it would also apply to allies within the circle. So it would be really bad to pair it with someone that wants to use abilities because they would break the CC immunity circle. But so like imagine this is very much intended to be a support champion. So you're out of combat. You grow the circle for CC immunity. If it breaks, but you're still out of combat, it'll start growing the circle again, I think is the intention. So his Q targets an enemy and applies a mark. Again, there's going to be a lot of direct target. 2 additional marks hit nearby enemies. If only 1 enemy is in range, all marks apply to 1. When you get to 3 marks on a target, they deal additional damage. And it gives a bunch of cooldown to your Q and slows the target. And additionally, if you use it on a cannon minion or large jungle minions, it heals yourself. If you have 1 mark on a target, it lasts for like a long time, but if you have 2 marks on a target, it evaporates pretty quickly. I think the intention was that this person could also be a jungler, now that I'm reading his Q. You would come out of the jungle to gank, and you'd have your CC immunity circle to help you gank.
That doesn't sound broken at all.
Well, just wait till we get to his ultimate. So his W, it fires a cone in a direction that roots. It turns out this is probably very similar in my mind to the Yorick, where he casts this thing that does the ghouls. After a few seconds, the opposite side fires a cone that stuns.
What?
So you could throw it out to root, and then you'd have to like click behind you to turn your character around to then fart out a stun. Although maybe I meant the cone to just be like a direct in front of you cone, not a thing you tossed. It's probably lines up better with the fart stun. All right, his E, it drops a circle that increases movement speed and attack speed. You can hold 3 charges, and 3 circles can be active at once. The effect stacks, but making a 4th circle will remove the circle closest to the cast location, not necessarily the oldest circle. Again, I definitely think this person was supposed to be a jungler. Okay, you ready for the ultimate? Newly purchased items are a percentage cheaper for all players. And then active, you target a player and remove them from your passive benefit, and you get 1 extra target per rank. That's it. That's the ultimate.
What the fuck? How does that synergize with the rest of his kit at all?
This was back in the day when junglers were like a glorified support.
Okay. That's like overpowered, but also useless ult.
It would be really, really OP for pro play when you could coordinate it, but really shit for solo queue. Someone buys their item and then you kill the jungle camp and level up to level 6, and then they would have gotten it cheaper if they had just waited.
Yeah, that's bad.
Meanwhile, the enemy team also benefits from this because it's all players, and you only get to remove 3 of the enemy team from it at the very end of the game.
Yeah, that really doesn't sound too good.
Yeah. All right, next up. His passive is health regeneration instead generates a shield, so you effectively don't have health regen. The shield has no cap, but is broken if you receive 3 auto attacks within a short time. His Q is called Grab, very original name here. Pushes minions aside other than canyons. It's actually Renata. If you hit the grab, it roots for a second and can be cast again to toss the victim in a chosen direction. It is literally just the Renata thing. But I came up with this way before Renata.
You did.
W, I named it Injection. You hold 2 strains that cool down independently. 1 strain can be cast on allies to heal over time them. Mostly you would put this on yourself because again you have no health regen. The other strain can be cast on the enemies to put a dot. Both last for a short time and then jump if other targets are available, and can transfer to yourself many times but only to other targets once per cooldown. E, you plant your staff into the ground and your auto attack changes to melee. Creates an aura in which Q gains increased range. W can transfer to and be cast on any target regardless of strain. Enemies are slowed within the circle and allies gain shield initially.
That's like an ultimate level ability, and
This would probably be someone whose ultimate and E get switched. You cast it on an enemy unit to transfer health from them to yourself. If at full health, it adds to your shield, and it lasts until the target dies or moves too far away. Casting on an ally heals them, but sucks away your own health. Starting with your passive shield, and lasts until the target moves too far away or manually cancelled, or the
that'd be
target
fine
gets
as
to
well.
full health.
I like this one the best. Strain things a little weird on enemies. Ally part's cool. I would pivot the champion to be more ally focused.
I think I initially thought of this as like a top laner.
This is 100%
a support.
Oh, so
But
this
sure.
100% an enchanter.
I think it's more of a burst mage myself.
Plant the staff, and then your auto attack scales to 500%.
Next up, we have a very complicated passive. This is very indicative of what they used to be like. Armor gives magic resist gives armor. That's it. That's the passive. Q. It creates 3 lines. Touching a line does some damage and applies a magic resist shred. 2 lines slow, 3 lines stun. And then based off of how far away you do the cast, it changes how far apart the lines are. Kind of like how Zig's Q bounces differently. So if you cast it at max range, there's like some distance between the lines. If you cast it at medium range, then they are not quite stacked on top of each other, but like one next to the other. And then if you cast it at close range, they all stack. They all stack on top of each other, meaning you're guaranteed to get a stun if they touch. W. It creates an expanding circle that expands outward. That's what expand means. You cast it again to pull things in. You can move while the circle expands, but damage taken can interrupt the cast. This is basically Galio's taunt, but Galio's taunt wasn't this back when. They stole this idea for Galio's taunt from my mind. Except I don't think you can interrupt Galio's taunt. Pulling things in is stronger than taunting, so might be viable. Alright, the next one is also a circle, but this one has to be on an ally, and it expands. Whilst you're in this circle that is created by your E, your W cannot be interrupted, and it buffs the defensive stats of things that are inside of it. The ultimate creates a portal between 2 points. Allies can click the portal to jump between locations. Enemies can kill the portal to despawn it early. And your portal's health is based off of your own defensive stats. Yeah, but you could go back and forth. It's more like everyone gets to be Rek'Sai. And killing the portal is not about standing on it, but actually dealing damage. And it's also pretty similar to Rise, except you could go back and forth. Overall, not my most inspired champion.
Honestly, the one that most likely could be added, though, I think.
Oh, maybe. Okay, this is my most inspired champion. Your passive is that you cycle between light and void. Void gives you resistance stats, whereas light gives you increased regeneration, both of health and mana. And using abilities pushes you to your cycle faster. So your Q can hold 4 charges. As light, it shoots a beam that does damage and consumes all of the charges at once. And the more charges you use, the more damage and girth you have. Void creates a circle that travels to your location, dealing damage along the way, and casting it again refreshes the duration of your existing orbs that you sent out, and obviously spawns another one. So he has 2 different Ws. I couldn't decide which one was the one that I wanted. We'll return to his W shortly because we're going to his E first. E can also hold 4 charges. It creates a hovering bomb over an area, and then when you switch your cycle, the bombs drop. If you cast the bomb while in light cycle, it will do some damage over time and root enemies, whereas if you cast the bomb in void cycle, it will explode immediately and do a stun when it hits. And then the W could either be you use it, and in light mode it gives you a buff that increases your move speed and allows you to cast while moving. In void form, you gain a big shield that does some reflected damage, but you also take a slow on yourself. The other option for the W is that it moves your charges from one ability to the other. Let's say you had 4 charges of each of your abilities. You use your Q in light mode to shoot a beam, then you use your W to transfer your charges of your E to your Q.
Like
and it does it for whichever one has more charges. It moves the more charges to the fewer charges, one at a time.
I like the first W better.
Sure. I think the second W is more thematic because you can press it multiple times to make his passive cycle faster. So the ultimate is that you create an orb at a location. He's very orb-pilled.
Okay.
During the light cycle, the orb pushes enemies away from the location. During the void cycle, it pulls enemies into the locations. If an enemy touches the orb, they'll pick it up and refresh the duration of the orb. Maybe allies could also pick it up.
He's very orb-pilled. I mean, it seems cool, though. The void-light balance. I like that one. Honestly, I like the 3 stances character as well. I'd rank them as that one you just mentioned, and then I'd probably tie the 3 stances one with the banner planting melee switching thing. That support sounds cool. Support build.
We got 3 more Eggmans.
Holy shit.
We're getting simpler though, in some ways. Alright, this one is a 80 carry, I think. Pretty sure. So the passive is named Grenadier. Attacks deal no damage, but instead place a grenade on the target that explodes after 5 seconds, or when an explosion is triggered. That'll become important later. Grenades will auto-explode when a target becomes low enough health to die from the explosion. They're very good at kill securing. Their Q is called Slag Blast. It fires a cone of slag that does some damage and explodes grenades. It reduces enemy armor and pushes the caster back. Your W is called Siege Mode. It's a toggle which immobilizes you and lowers your attack speed, but increases your range. You're immune to CC while active, but can only move with Q.
Parrot Lady, heroes.
Your E is called Hot Feet. Moving stacks a buff that increases your grenade damage. And then your ultimate is a Ring of Fire. It calls in a big ring that collapses towards the center and does more damage as it gets closer to the center.
Definitely sounds like a pro play 80 character.
Yeah, I debated on whether or not it's standing still should increase your grenade damage as opposed to moving, but that might be very powerful with the siege mode where you just like opaque sit and then start doing mondo dam. Next up, we got a passive. Using abilities reduces the cooldown on other abilities. Just your basic abilities, not your ultimate ability. And then when your abilities are off cooldown, they continue a pseudo cooldown that goes up to a counter that goes up to 10. This will be relevant for the abilities. Your Q is a line skill shot. On even numbers, it does damage, and then on odd numbers, it roots. So on 2, it does the most damage. And on 10, it does a small amount of damage. On lower odd numbers, it doesn't root for very long, and on higher numbers, it roots for longer. So 9 roots long, but 10 does little damage. You get the idea.
Playing against that, what the fuck?
Your W is a buff that gives yourself tenacity and damage reduction on even numbers, and move speed on odd numbers. 2 is the most tenacity and damage reduction, 10 is little, 1 gives small move speed, 9 gives a lot. Your E restores your health over time on even numbers and mana on odd numbers. 2 is big health, 10 little health, 1 not much mana, 9 big mana. Your ultimate is do all the things. Your abilities have no cooldown and are cast instantly with random counter values. You just aim your Q and hope that things turn out all right.
How long?
I didn't have numbers on this. It says short duration, long cooldown, but
Okay.
the last guy. This guy's a lot about slimes. So his passive is that he creates a slime if he doesn't have one. The slime gets 50% of the champion's mana as health and inherits all your defensive stats and attack damage. Your Q is command slime, jump. The slime goes to the location that you cast your Q at. Your W is command slime, frenzy. It pulls out some of the health from your slimes to restore your own HP and causes the slimes to get attack speed. You'll note that I say slimes, but it's a parentheses S. This will be important later. Your E has 2 parts to the cast. Your first cast makes a poison cloud around yourself that moves with you and deals damage and heals your slimes. It can slow enemies, and your second cast will turn it off to stop draining your mana. The second cast puts the cloud on the slimes. The ultimate is to replicate the slimes. 1 slime becomes 2 slimes, 2 slimes would become 4 slimes, 4 slimes would become 8 slimes. They get lower in terms of health, but they're multiplying higher overall health.
They
So
are
like
legion.
each slime would have 60% of your mana, to where it adds up to more than 100%, but you keep getting more and more slimes. When a slime dies, it deals its HP as damage to your mana. If you have no mana, it will deal the damage directly to your health.
Not sure how effective it would be at all, though.
It's very minion managey, but also he would be very, very good at taking towers. He's a very good split pusher. If you can just sit in a side lane, getting up a legion of slimes, and then command them onto the tower, they would just start going ba 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 ba, because the slimes have your attack
Yeah,
damage,
true.
all of your attack damage. But that's it. That's the duders.
What do you think is the most hated legal ability mechanic?
Stealth.
Actually, not. They did a feedback. Riot, I guess this guy did a feedback. The actually most hated and least interacted with ability was Aurelion Sol's Old Stars. That was basically all of Aurelion Sol's old kit, though. He said Aurelion Sol was almost the worst design ever.
Because they haven't seen my champion designs yet.